Keanu Reeves steps into a luxury car dealership, expecting nothing more than a straightforward chat about a classic car, only to find himself facing unexpected aggression and an explosive encounter. However, the composed and unassuming actor's response leaves everyone dumbfounded, unveiling a reality that takes all by surprise. But before we get into that, drop us a comment below to let us know where you're tuning in from today, and if this tale resonates with you, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more incredible stories. It was a radiant morning in Los Angeles, the sunlight casting a golden hue over the sleek exteriors of upscale shops. The dealership that Keanu chose was renowned citywide for its impeccable collection of exotic vehicles, cars so unique and costly that even looking felt like a privilege. The scent of fresh leather and shiny chrome filled the air as he entered through the automatic doors, which welcomed him with a whoosh of cool, air-conditioned breeze. Dressed simply in a well-worn black jacket, faded jeans, and scuffed boots, and without any ostentatious accessories or a large entourage, he looked just like any other intrigued bystander, possibly someone eager to snap a photo with the iconic cars. He greeted a young receptionist with a warm smile, but she barely looked up from her phone. Undeterred, Keanu made his way to the main showroom, where the high-gloss floors mirrored the silhouettes of polished supercars lined up in gleaming rows. These ranged from sleek modern convertibles to some of the most coveted vintage models, each bearing a price tag that would make most people gulp. Keanu strolled through, pausing now and then to admire a specific car and check its details. Meanwhile, a few onlookers peeked at him, some recognizing him but puzzled by his solitary presence. He eventually halted before a striking cobalt blue vintage sports car. Its classic contours reminded him of a bygone era in Hollywood, where cars were not just transport but pieces of art. The price was eye-watering, yet Keanu was captivated by the car's enduring elegance. He caressed the fender, tracing the vehicle's history with his touch. In the background, a salesman caught sight of Keanu and did a double-take. For a moment, he recognized him as Keanu Reeves, but just as he moved to approach, a sharp command came from the manager's office: "Don't bother with looky-loose." The salesman paused, then reluctantly turned away, ignoring Keanu. Unbothered by the initial dismissal, Keanu was accustomed to no-frills treatment and preferred to blend in. He continued examining the car's interior, appreciating the meticulously restored leather seats and the vintage steering wheel, imagining cruising down the Pacific Coast Highway at sunset. Soon after, an impeccably dressed older man strode out from the manager's office. His posture was stiff, his shoulders squared as if he bore the weight of the dealership's reputation. Mr. Langston, the general manager known for securing multimillion-dollar deals with the elite, fixed his hawk-like gaze on Keanu. "Good morning," Keanu greeted him politely, turning to face him. "I was hoping to learn more about this car." Langston sized him up, from his worn boots to his casual jacket, and didn't bother with a greeting. "This car," he said, stressing each word, "is not just any old vehicle. It's a collector's item. Are you sure you understand what you're inquiring about?" Keanu responded with a calm smile. "Yes, I'm quite sure," he replied. "Could you perhaps share more about its history?" Langston smirked condescendingly. "Sir, do you realize the type of clientele we cater to here?" He gestured towards the array of luxury cars. "These vehicles are for those who appreciate their true value, people who possess a certain status." A few staff members, drawn by the growing tension, began to drift closer, casting wary glances at Keanu. While some recognized him and whispered among themselves, others saw merely a casually dressed outsider venturing into a domain of opulence. Keanu maintained his composure, allowing Langston's remarks to linger in the air. He was no stranger to encountering various personalities, some welcoming and others not so much. But the palpable hostility from the manager was unsettling. "I understand what I am looking at," Keanu replied, his tone calm yet assertive. If you're unable to assist me, perhaps someone else here can. A trace of irritation flickered across Langston's face as he retorted sharply, I am the manager here, and I decide who gets help. He glanced around, seeking affirmation. The employees stood silent, hesitant to challenge their daunting boss. Keanu's eyes returned to the cobalt-blue vintage car. In his mind, it still radiated with all the potential he had envisioned, but the escalating hostility felt like a dark shadow over the bright Los Angeles morning. He inhaled quietly, steeling himself for what was to come. The tension in the expansive showroom tightened, like a cord stretched to its limit. Keanu kept his composure, though he felt the environment shift from mere unfriendliness to open antagonism. Mr. Langston advanced, his eyes narrowing as if Keanu were intruding on sacred territory. A few onlookers lingered near the room's perimeter, their phones ready, uncertain whether to document the unfolding scene. A couple recognized Keanu as the globally admired actor known for his humility, yet none dared to step in, possibly intimidated by Langston's temper or unsure of their interpretation of the situation. Keanu gently closed the car door he had been inspecting and faced the manager. Look, he began, his voice steady, I'm here to inquire about this vintage model. If you're uncomfortable speaking with me, that's fine, but there's no need for hostility. Langston's expression twisted with disdain. Hostility? Son, you're fortunate I even came out here. We have actual clients to cater to, the kind who wear proper suits and don't question the prices of cars they obviously can't afford. A young salesperson, Eva, tentatively stepped forward, clearing her throat. Mr. Langston, I can assist this gentleman, she offered. Langston turned abruptly, cutting her off with a stern gesture. Did I give you permission to speak, Eva? He barked. She recoiled, her objection stifled. Keanu's eyes met hers briefly, conveying sympathy, but she quickly averted her gaze, fearful of further repercussions. The tension escalated. Keanu decided to try once more, speaking softly. I don't want to cause any trouble, he said. I just need some information about the car, that's all. The manager's eyes blazed with suspicion. Oh, you're causing a scene, all right, he accused. Men like you strolling off the streets, thinking you can, what? Just talk your way into a test drive of a vehicle that costs more than an entire condo? I've seen your type before. All talk, no substance. Keanu's patience wore thin, yet he maintained a composed voice. It's unfortunate you're so quick to judge, he remarked. Langston scoffed coldly. And I'll judge however I please, he declared, stepping closer to Keanu with an aggressive stance. His voice rose, drawing more spectators. You think because you have some nerve, you can just stroll in here and browse? By now, a small crowd had gathered, some employees watching anxiously, torn between loyalty to their boss and a growing sense that he was overstepping. The luxurious cars around them stood as mute witnesses to the confrontation. Then, suddenly, Langston lunged forward, pushing Keanu back. The abruptness of the act caused Keanu to stagger, bumping into the side mirror of a nearby luxury coupe. A collective gasp echoed through the showroom. Keanu straightened, his eyes mirroring both shock and a touch of sorrow. He rubbed his shoulder, striving to remain calm. There's no need for violence, he stated quietly. I'm not here to fight. But Langston was not done. Perhaps spurred by the humiliation of being watched or by Keanu's lack of fear, the manager's face reddened as he threw a quick punch, hitting Keanu in the chest. The blow, poorly aimed, made Keanu reel back. Another murmur of shock spread among the staff. At this, Eva stepped forward once more, visibly alarmed. Mr. Langston, please, this isn't. She was silenced by a stern glance from the manager. Keanu, momentarily stunned. But today was completely unacceptable. I should have spoken up sooner. Keanu, still maintaining his composure despite the ordeal, raised his hands in a gesture of peace. "I'm not going to fight you," he reiterated firmly. "Just let me go, and I'll leave." But Langston, perhaps feeling his authority was being challenged, delivered a swift kick to Keanu's leg. This time, Keanu lost his balance and dropped to one knee, wincing as he collided with a high-end sports car behind him, setting off its alarm briefly. The disturbance drew gasps and cries of dismay from the onlookers. One quickly started recording the incident while another turned away, unable to watch the unfolding brutality. Langston, standing over Keanu with his chest heaving and fists clenched, looked down with evident fury. Keanu, catching his breath, looked up with a silent query in his eyes. Why? Yet, he didn't retaliate. He never raised a hand, never shouted. His calm in the face of such aggression seemed to only fuel Langston's anger further. "You want me to call the cops on you?" the manager barked, his voice shaking with rage. He shoved Keanu again, forcing him to scramble to his feet. "Get out! You're done here. Don't ever come back." Keanu rose, his gaze filled with a quiet resolve, though a small bruise was already forming on his cheek. "I don't know what's driving you to do this, but you've made your point." "I'm leaving," he said, his voice measured, limping slightly as he walked through the crowd of onlookers. Some moved aside, visibly shaken, while others stared in disbelief, their phones hanging uncertainly by their sides. As he stepped out onto the sunlit Los Angeles sidewalk, the contrast between the indoor hostility and the comforting warmth outside was jarring. Keanu took a deep breath, trying to steady his nerves, his adrenaline still pumping. He glanced back at the dealership's glass doors with a mix of pain and determination in his eyes. Bruised and humiliated, yet unbowed, a spark in his gaze hinted that this story was far from over. After all, Keanu Reeves was no stranger to overcoming adversity. As he limped down the sidewalk, his mind raced. He had entered the dealership hoping for a simple dialogue about a vintage car, but found himself assaulted and ejected. He paused by a public bench, taking a moment to catch his breath, dabbing at a trickle of blood from his split lip with his jacket. Passers-by gave him concerned glances, to which he nodded reassuringly, signaling he was all right. What to do next? Part of him wanted to call the police, while another part wanted to just forget the whole incident and never return to that toxic environment. But as he replayed the events, Langston's fury, the smugness of some staff, and the shocked expressions of others, it felt like there was a deeper issue, a pervasive culture of arrogance that needed addressing. Just then, Eva, the young salesperson who had tried to intervene earlier, called out to him from behind. Breathless from running after him, she asked with genuine concern, "Mr. Reeves, are you okay?" Keanu gave her a slight smile. "I'll be fine. Thank you for checking on me," he replied. Eva sighed in relief. "I'm so sorry about what happened. Mr. Langston has always been difficult, but today was completely over the line. I should have spoken up sooner." Keanu's experience at the dealership was a harsh reminder of the arrogance and entitlement that could pervade high-end business environments, but his response, a blend of resilience and grace under pressure, underscored his character. His ordeal wasn't just a personal challenge. It highlighted a systemic issue that he now felt compelled to address, but had never imagined, making the situation even more compelling. Keanu placed a reassuring hand on Eva's shoulder, soothing her distress. "I'm not upset with you or your colleagues. This situation was extraordinary," he remarked, grimacing slightly as he adjusted his stance. "I appreciate your efforts to intervene." Eva's eyes welled up with remorse, her gaze reflecting the burden of her inaction. "I wish I could have done more. Look, some staff were filming too. Once the word gets out, management might try to manipulate the narrative, but the video will speak for itself," she said, hope mingling with worry in her voice. Keanu nodded, a glimmer of determination in his eyes. "The truth has a way of emerging into the light," he stated. "However, I won't allow that place to continue mistreating people." He softened his voice, adding, "And it wasn't just me who suffered today. I saw how he treated you and everyone else." Eva blinked back tears, her voice shaky. "I don't know what's going to happen now." "He's the manager, and the owners trust him to maintain the dealership's exclusivity, to keep out those they feel don't belong," she said, her tone laced with disdain as she mimicked the word belong. Keanu paused, the manager's harsh glare flashing through his mind, then took a slow, deep breath. "I can't let this go," he declared quietly. "Not just for my sake. No one should have to endure that kind of intimidation, whether they're working or shopping." Digging into his pocket, he retrieved a small notepad and pen, tools he often carried to capture spontaneous thoughts. He jotted down a phone number and handed the slip of paper to Eva. "If anyone inside needs to talk, or if you need help, call this number," he instructed. "I know some folks who can bring this issue to light in a more official capacity." Eva nodded, her hands trembling slightly. "Thank you," she managed to say, her voice a whisper. "You really are everything they say about you." Keanu offered a faint smile. "I'm just someone who tries to do what's right," he replied. "Take care of yourself, Eva." As she walked back toward the dealership, her expression anxious, Keanu turned and resumed his careful walk. Though physically battered, his resolve only strengthened. He anticipated the media frenzy that would follow once the incident came to light, the speculative social media posts and the inevitable paparazzi flashes. But none of that mattered as much as addressing the deeper issue. 2 hours later, Keanu sat across from Marisol, one of his trusted friends and legal advisors, in a quiet office overlooking a serene courtyard. The bamboo plants swayed gently in the breeze, a stark contrast to the morning's turbulence. "He punched and kicked you?" Marisol repeated, her normally composed demeanor replaced by concern. "That's assault, Keanu." "I know," Keanu replied softly, taking a sip of water. "But pressing charges isn't enough. People like Langston thrive in environments that prioritize status over humanity. I want to challenge the entire culture at that dealership, expose it, or see it change." Marisol leaned back, her gaze thoughtful. "So, you want to take this story public? Not just to retaliate, but to highlight this unacceptable behavior?" "Exactly," Keanu confirmed, wincing as his bruised ribs reminded him of the assault. "It's about respect, about accountability." Outside, the breeze rustled the bamboo leaves, reminding Keanu of the calm he strives to maintain, even in the face of hostility. He thought of Eva's fearful eyes and the silent, shocked staff. "We need to gather all the evidence we can and handle this correctly," Marisol said, setting aside her notepad. A smile tugged at the corners of Keanu's lips. "That's exactly what we'll do." As he replayed the day's events, the vintage car, the assault, the hushed crowd, a new resolve formed. Keanu was set on standing up for those who felt powerless, on bringing empathy to a world that often favored arrogance. Little did he know, the consequences of his actions would be more impactful than he could have imagined. Videos would surface, the media would converge, and reputations would be at stake. The steps Keanu was about to take would ignite a movement that could shake the high-end automotive world to its core. Stay tuned for the next part of this unfolding story, where the aftermath of this shocking confrontation will reveal developments that no one could have predicted. Thumbs up like this video if you stand for respect and dignity for all. Speech balloon comment below to share your thoughts or similar experiences. Counterclockwise arrows button share this video to spread awareness about workplace respect and accountability. Bell subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay updated with more stories like this. Hashtag respect at work. Hashtag Keanu Reeves. Hashtag stand up. Hashtag justice. Hashtag empathy in action.